Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I'm Eric, and today we have a brand new park battle. Today, it is Kings Island versus Kings Dominion, the two kings of Cedar Fair. But which one is king of them all? We're going to find out today, but first, thank you for getting me to 300 subscribers. It's quite a milestone for me. We've been growing a lot lately. I'd like to ask that you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And I will be making a Q&A video soon as a 300 sub special. Now let's begin the matchups. Normally, I start with inverted coasters, but there is not an inverted coaster at King's Dominion, so I really can't do that. We'll be starting instead with launch coasters. These are Flight of Fear and Flight of Fear, and because they are the same ride, they both get 1 point. Next up is the Backlot Stunt coasters, which are also launch coasters, and because they are the same, they also both earn a point. I should say right now, both parks have some very similar rides. There's going to be a lot of tied matchups here. This is the first ride matchup that doesn't actually have the same rides, and it's actually kind of a matchup. Wooden coasters, the Beast versus the Grizzly. Grizzly is not a bad ride. I think it's a solid wooden coaster, honestly. I didn't think it was that rough. I think the Beast is actually a really good one, though. Some don't like it much, but I think it's a really great ride with a solid layout and excellent night rides, so Kings Island takes the lead. Next up, we have Racing Woodies. These rides do have some differences in height, speed, and length, but they are very similar to each other. Their layouts are pretty much identical. So once again, I'll be making a tie. Now for two family coasters, Avalanche and the Bat. I think bobsled coasters are actually really great rides. Avalanche is a really fantastic one. I thought it was a little more intense than Bat, honestly, even though Bat does get some pretty intense moments. It's still a really great family ride, but I'm giving the edge to Avalanche here. Next up is the Kiddie Coasters. For those who don't know, these are now worth a half point instead of a full point. And once again, they are the same ride. So each park earns half a point. Now for two very different B&M coasters. I know I mentioned I wasn't comparing inverts, but this is the best matchup I could think of. Some think it will be very one-sided toward Banshee because a lot of people don't like Dominator. But Dominator is in my top 30 coasters. I think it's a fantastic ride. I think it's perfectly smooth, intense, great layout. Inversions are strong. This is actually a pretty close fight for me, but I do think Banshee comes out on top as the best B&M invert, and it's a really, really great ride. So Kings Island does earn the point, but this matchup is not quite as one-sided as some may think. Next up, we have Woodstock Express, another one where they are the same ride, so both parks earn a point. Now we have even more family coasters. This is Apple's Apple at Kings Dominion and Adventure Express at Kings Island. The theming is what gives Adventure Express the edge here. Both have some pretty solid, intense layouts and are some of the better ones of their models, those being Aero Mine Train and Mack Wild Mouse, but I'll be giving Adventure Express the points. Back to some big coasters, we have the Gigas, Orion and Intimidator 305. Very different rides, very different layouts, different manufacturers, and while Orion's obviously still a really great roller coaster, Intimidator 305's first curve is simply not even close a matchup, because that moment is so intense and outshines the entirety of Orion, in my opinion. I think Intimidator 305 is a fantastic roller coaster and definitely deserves this point. And our final matchup, we have the Timbers, Mystic Timbers and Twisted Timbers. I actually have not been on either of these coasters. However, it seems to me that Twisted Timbers is the better ride. I do prefer RMC hybrids to most wooden coasters, so I think I prefer Twisted. But it's also the really fast, compact layout. Of course, Mystic Timbers has great airtime and some intense moments, but I think Twisted Timbers looks to be the better ride, so I will be giving Twisted Timbers the point. And that's all for the roller coaster matchups. I will be giving an extra point to King's Dominion for Anaconda. It should honestly be losing a point for this ride, but I'll leave it for now. And Kings Island has 3 extra coasters. These are Diamondback, Invertigo, and Flying Ace Aerial Chase. That means Kings Island is currently up by 2 points. Moving away from roller coasters, we have drop towers. Both of these are gyro drops. They're both called drop tower, I believe. And there are some differences, such as spinning on the way up for Kings Island, and I believe Kings Dominion is a taller and faster one, but they are similar enough that I will be giving both 1 point because I've not been on them to truly judge. Now for some other thrill rides. Both parks get a point for their Windseekers and their Delirium Husk Frisbees, so that's 2 points for each, but Kings Dominion gets a 3rd point for Berserker. And now we are going to talk about dark rides. This will be brief. They are both Boo Blasters on Boo Hill. Both parks get a point because they are pretty much the same ride. There may be slight differences in theming, but they're close enough. Our next matchup is water rides. Both parks have a shoot-the-chute type ride and a river rapids ride. Very similar lineups there, so both parks get 2 points. Our next matchup is to see which park has more non-roller coaster rides. Kings Island is 33, Kings Dominion is 47. Kings Dominion gets the point, and the score is now tied. Moving on to shows, I have not seen a show in either park, and it's hard to find information on shows because of COVID. I don't know a whole lot. You don't hear a lot about standout shows in either of these Cedar Fair parks. So for now, I'm going to give both a point, leaving it as a tie, until I can really judge for myself. Moving on to the only category that really affects me outside of rides in a theme park, food. Because sometimes I'm hungry on the way from one ride to the next. I think Kings Dominion has some pretty good selections. You have some strong selections in Kings Dominion. Mainly their dessert items are pretty well known, but Kings Island's desserts, specifically Grater's ice cream, are particularly well known. So I will be giving the edge to Kings Island, but I think both have pretty good food options. Now we're discussing park appearance. Both parks do have some nice theming in certain areas and some pretty good landscaping and terrain overall. However, some people have mentioned after the 40th anniversary for Kings Dominion, they really upped their game. I must agree with this, and while I think Kings Island's theming is good overall, there's a little more greenery and a little nicer scenery overall at Kings Dominion. That means the score is tied once again. Now on to the park layout. This is an interesting one because I had no trouble getting around either one overall, except for one minor detail. At Kings Island, there are some sort of cutoff areas where you have to go into certain junctions to get to roller coasters, and Kings Dominion has the same. I feel like the good rides are clumped together a bit closer in Kings Island, so it's a little easier to get around. It's really tough, and the other thing to note is that Kings Dominion has 2 sort of loops overall, and then Soak City's in the back, and when you combine all of it together, it can get a little tough to get around at times. Both have good layouts overall. I'm not saying one's worse than the other. It's a very tough call. But I'm going to give the edge to Kings Island. Both have the sort of areas that split off from each other, but I think Kings Island handles it a little better, having many rides in similar places. Now for operating season. This is a pretty tough one, because they are very similar seasons, despite being in very different places. Kings Dominion has like March dates that Kings Island doesn't have, and that's just a couple of winter ones, and it varies year by year. And I don't know a whole lot about their 2021 schedules yet, so I'll be giving Kings Dominion a half point because it's such a subtle difference, but not so subtle that it's going to be another tie. So Kings Dominion is now behind by only half a point. And that brings us to our final category, operations. Kings Dominion's operations can be good. I remember Intimidator 305, Dominator, and Racer 75, Rebel Yell when I went, all working pretty well. However, I think Kings Island's operations are really, really great. Diamondback, even the Beast, Banshee's great. Even the cars that only run one train like in Vertigo, they were loaded pretty quickly when I went. Kings Island's operations are close to some of the best in the world, I think, so I will definitely be giving Kings Island the final points. And that means our winner is Kings Island. Note, I excluded prices because due to calendars and 2020, 2021 COVID stuff, it was difficult for me to find accurate numbers. If Kings Dominion were to win that category, they probably would have only been behind by half a point. This was a very close matchup because of how many similarities they have, but I personally agree that Kings Island is the better park. Both are great, and please don't be discouraged if you are rooting for Kings Dominion. It's just one guy's opinion and a bunch of categories. It's not the objective ranking. But congratulations, Kings Island. I personally am naming you the king of the Cedar Fair King Parks. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this park battle. Remember, it's just my opinion. Please like the video if you enjoyed. And remember to subscribe so you know when I make new videos. I've been making a lot more lately, and the channel's been growing quite a bit. I'd really appreciate if you guys would help support me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.